Today, my guest is Wade Rouse, author of 4 critically acclaimed memoirs, including his latest, his 4th book, a long title, It's All Relative, a memoir of 2 families, 3 dogs, 34 holidays, and 50 boxes of wine from Harmony Random House. Now, the book deals with America's obsession with picture-perfect holidays and looks at the evolution of family through the lens of different holidays. Wade's going to be doing a reading and signing at Just Fabulous Bookstore in Palm Springs on Saturday, April 23rd. We'll be talking to him about what time you should all get there. Wade, welcome to the show. It is so nice to have you here in person.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, it's really nice to be face-to-face with you.
Well, it is. I love it. And, of course, I loved during the telephone interview with you about your last book, but it's so much fun, and Gary is here too. Gary promised he's going to be very, very quiet.
Which is really hard for Gary, believe me.
Well, Gary is such a big part of your life and, of course, your book. So let's start out with talking about this new book. How would you describe it?
I would describe it as laugh out loud hilarious, but also a book that I think truly unites us all, because there's nothing like the total dysfunction of our holidays, no matter what they may be. I think that's the main reason that I really wanted to write this book, was it kind of coalesced in a couple of ways. And this is the story I always tell, was that I heard a story a few years ago, and I believe it was on NPR, that talked about how much money Americans spent on their holidays. Just the masses. I think it was for Christmas, roughly $1,000 per person.
Well, and they spend more at Halloween. Could you believe it?
And Halloween and Easter,
is
and 4th of July.
Well, Halloween's the biggie.
And I started thinking about that, and it kind of coalesced with the illness of my mother, who passed away a couple of years ago. And in talking with her, she said, of all the gifts you've ever received, our stories are the ones that you'll cherish the most.
Absolutely.
And want to pass on. And
You're so right.
And we were a family that's largely insane.
Well, we're going to get into that, but I want you to hold that thought, because we have other things that we want to get your thoughts on first. And I remember asking you this question when I interviewed you before, but it touched me so much. I want you to answer again. As a child, you sat on the porch with your grandmother, who read Walden Pond out loud to you, and the effect that she had on your life. Can you talk about that briefly? Because that was so touching and so wonderful.
Yeah, I grew up in the Missouri Ozarks, and my grandparents had a log cabin on a little creek down there. And every Sunday morning, my grandmother was a very religious woman, used to always go to church except in the summers. And I would join her on this barn red glider that sat overlooking the creek, and she would read to me from the Bible and from Walden Pond. And she always told me that the Bible was more for her afterlife, but she felt that Walden was more for her here life.
Oh, that touched me so much. How special for you that
and it
must
really,
have been.
My grandparents served as, that's what I think is one of the things that's missing today, is I spent so much time with my grandparents, and they influenced me greatly, and I got to know them as people, and that changed my life.
Yes, most grandparents now have to talk on phones and text and stick to holidays. Yes, I had that same thing with my grandmother. Well, we got to get into this book, though, because it's really hysterical. So, first of all, I want you to set the scene and talk about your early Christmases with your dad and your other relatives. I thought that was a fun beginning.
Yeah, that's the prologue to the entire book, which kicks
sure
it off.
Is.
Which is, I said, kind of set the entire holiday trait for my life, which is, one early Christmas in my life, I used to have a great aunt and uncle, though I didn't know it at the time, that dressed up as Mr. and Mrs. Claus.
Of course you didn't know it. You were a kid.
I was a kid, and they arrived. They would come and go. They were kind of like a solar eclipse. They would arrive every few years, and I thought that's kind of the way Santa operated. And they showed up one day semi-inebriated on Ham's beer, and my great uncle ended up kind of pulling down his bowl full of jelly and airing out his jingle balls, as I call it. And I kind of learned the truth of what was going on in that moment. And it devastated my holidays, but also,
I bet.
But also kind of made me realize that, it's not the fantasy that's important. It's kind of the being together that's the most important. And I thought, if they can sacrifice Vegas every couple of years to come and be with me, even though they're drunk off their butts, that's good, yeah.
Well, of all the holidays that you mention in the book, and I know you love holidays. I know you both love holidays, all holidays. But which is your favorite?
I have a lot of favorites.
No, you got to name your most favorite. If you had to.
I absolutely love Thanksgiving because it's a time when we all come together. There's kind of not that pressure of the gift giving, and you're just there usually more relaxed.
That's my favorite too.
That's
for
nice.
The same reason.
So it's a really wonderful couple of days usually where you just spend quality time together, and that's one of my favorites. Although I write in the book, Gary's mother kind of jacked up my first Thanksgiving because she didn't put the mini marshmallows on the sweet potatoes, which is a must.
Oh, yeah.
So I freaked out and locked myself in the bathroom.
No, you didn't.
I did. I almost came unglued because I wanted my Thanksgiving to be the way it always was.
Well, but you know what? That's what's so great about Thanksgiving. It is the tradition. And if you don't have the same thing, the mini marshmallows and the Jell-O mold or whatever it is you remember.
The way you like it.
Yes. I remember one year my son was away at college and he couldn't come home. And so he went to somebody else's house for Thanksgiving, and he called and said, "Can you believe it? They had no stuffing. It ruined my Thanksgiving." So I've got a good idea of how you felt about the mini marshmallows.
It is just that consistency that you love. I mean, Gary's first Thanksgiving with my family, my dad stuffs the turkey. He leaves it out fully stuffed for way too long, which is a disturbing part. But he didn't cook the stuffing in a separate tin. Gary likes it crisp on top, and we always put it in. So that kind of ruined his Thanksgiving. But we learned. That's what you learn.
We have to adapt.
That's the silliness that you overcome at the holidays, too.
What is the funniest thing that might have happened to you at Thanksgiving? Any Thanksgiving, whether from your childhood or when you two guys got together?
Well, one of my favorite pieces is the fact that Gary was not used to my father cooking. My father is a phenomenal cook. But stuffing the turkey and then leaving it out, as my dad says, to get to room temperature. And Gary grabbed me that very first Thanksgiving and he pointed up at the turkey and he goes, "We're going to die."
Such drama.
And then that was actually the same year that we did the 2 Thanksgivings in one. And it was our first year as a couple, and I went to his parents and his mom left the marshmallows off. So it was kind of,
payback.
Exactly. That payback is tough.
Yeah.
So we learned from that.
Yeah. Well, all of your books are filled with self-deprecating humor, and that's an important part of your life and your writing. And did that serve you growing up, or was this something that developed later in life, the humor?
Totally. My family, first of all, was hilarious, but that was my saving grace growing up. I mean, growing up, I was once a very chubby boy. Growing up chubby and gay in the Ozarks, it's a lose-lose right there.
And you're so trim and thin now.
Thank you. So that was my kind of my self-defense. It's the way I got myself through situations. And that sense of humor is really what buoyed me through my life. And I always tell everybody my favorite author is Irma Bombeck.
Oh, yeah.
And she did exactly the same thing, and that's who I read growing up. So I kind of always wanted to aspire to have her sense of humor.
To be another Irma Bombeck.
Yeah, boy Irma.
That leads me, it's kind of a nice segue into talking to you about Valentine's Day as a kid and your special Valentine box. Tell that story. Tell a little bit of that story.
Yeah, just yet again being a little gay boy in the Ozarks. Chubby, and I...
Not too popular.
No, and I wanted my WOW mailbox because I'm sure kids still do that, but you make your own mailboxes. I
don't know whether they still do or not.
That was our big thing. Did you do that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
that
create your own.
That might be a generational thing. I don't really know.
But we created our own mailboxes, and then you walked around giving cards out to all your classmates.
And waiting to see how many Valentines you would get.
Exactly. That was a big thing on how well liked you were. So I ended up stealing one of the girls in my class, her Barbie doll, and dismembering it. And I'd take her legs and lifted one gam up to show if there was mail, or put it down
like
to show
the flag on your mailbox.
Like the flag on the mailbox. And when she saw what I had done, she screamed a scream that still reverberates in my head. And that kind of set off, kind of a bad year for me.
Yeah.
But I was showing my flair.
Well, you were showing your flair, that's for sure, but you didn't get many Valentines, did you?
I didn't. I got one from a little boy who had a crush on me,
Right.
which, further dismembered me emotionally growing up. So, yeah, that's me in the Ozarks.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's really funny, but what is really wonderful is the support that you did get from your family in all of that. I mean, it's really hysterical. Let's go on to my question. Of course, it's a very long title. I get the 2 families, the 3 dogs, the 34 holidays. All right, you've got to explain the 50 boxes of wine.
I always say the 50 boxes of wine is actually the most vital part of the title because for all of us, that's really kind of the way that you get through many of the holidays. And for my family, I wish that we were this classy, proper family that drank, $50 bottles of wine, but we were a Franzia family. So
Franzia, you have to explain that.
Franzia is that boxed wine that you can buy at the grocery for about $7.99. It actually, they just fill the bladder in the box, and my father used to empty the box and squeeze it until it was empty. And that thing would go, I think for most families should go 2 or 3 days, and ours was about 3 or 4 hours. But, we always said we could get a hell of a buzz off of $5.
Well, at least it's not $2 Chuck. I mean, they're selling that by the case now, and it really isn't bad, I guess.
It's not. $2 Chuck is like, it's fine wine compared to what I was drinking.
Even
or
though
my dad was drinking.
Paid $7.99 for it.
Yeah, it was cost cutter.
Yeah.
That was my Depression era dad. He came from a Depression era grandma, so you made the money count.
Well, I think that's true of that generation.
Oh.
Absolutely. I can remember a great uncle of mine going to his house, and the cupboards were filled, and even I think my mom and dad did it, were filled with cans and cans of corn and beans and all of that, and I didn't understand why, and then they said, well, you never know when something's going to happen.
The fear that it could happen.
So,
that's the way my grandmother was with tinfoil and those little jelly packets and mustard and ketchups at restaurants. She would empty them into her purse. So that's what we got served. So if there was a picnic, we opened our little packets.
Your little packet.
They were free, baby.
No, that's funny. But, the thing that's great, too, and maybe it's because of the kind of upbringing that you had, I mean, there are a lot of bizarre things that went on. You could have grown up to be really nuts or weird or whatever, and yet
you would be right.
And maybe there's a little. I think every author has to be a little off.
Yeah,
anyway,
a little off kilter,
especially if you're writing humor.
Yeah,
but you didn't grow up bitter.
No, I didn't. It's a great question, actually. My first memoir, America's Boy, is about growing up gay in the Ozarks, kind of my upbringing, and I think there was a certain bitterness that I experienced when I hit my 20s.
Oh, I'm sure.
And I was still closeted, and I wasn't happy, and I was heavy, and nothing had really kind of come together in my life. But, I always say I looked at my family and how hard they struggled to make me the person I was. And I think that if you truly look at yourself deeply, that kind of ends that bitterness. You have to be responsible for yourself. And
that's a great answer too, because a lot of people aren't able to do that. They stick with the bitterness, and they don't have the epiphany that you had.
And you need
it.
And we all have that at some point in our lives. We all stand and really glare at ourselves in that mirror. And I think you can choose 2 directions. And I choose to follow my passion and to be happy. And I think that's what we all need to do.
I want to say again very quickly that you have been on tour, and you're going to be at Just Fabulous bookstore on Saturday, April 23rd. What time are you going to be there? What time should people get there?
2:00. Come at 2:00, and I'm going to be reading and signing books, and we're going to do a fun Easter bonnet party.
Oh, I bet you are.
In celebration of the holiday and all of the hats we love to wear.
Well, Stephen does such a great job, and now the store is enlarged. Isn't it wonderful what he's done?
Incredible.
But I want the audience to know too that this is where I met you. My friend Michael Holmes
the amazing Michael Holmes.
The amazing Michael Holmes. Yes, I see him once in a while, chat with him. He's a good buddy, and introduced us, and listened to your reading, and had you on my show, and now you'll be on for every book that you write.
Which is, I love you for that. Thank you very much.
I love your books.
And Michael is an amazing talent and former Michigan.
Well, yes, I hear stories, a lot of stories from him.
He's got a lot of stories. He's got as many stories as I do.
Oh, I know. He should write a book, but we're talking about you. But I wonder, he's going to Ogunquit, Maine in the summer. Do you ever get up to Ogunquit, Maine? I think there's lots of stories there for you.
No, but we actually live half the year in Saugatuck, Michigan, which is very similar to that resort town.
Yeah,
it's
that's
a beautiful
what he tells
town
me.
on the beaches of Michigan. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. Well, let's get to your book, because I can talk about Michael another time, but you're here now to talk about your book and this huge tour that you've been on. Now, you did mention that you thought the funniest thing that happened was the turkey thing, but let's get some more of the funny episodes into this and talk about that. Which one did you have the most fun with writing? Or
Gary's pointing, there are pictures on the back of this book, and Gary's pointing to the one of himself where he famously dressed as June Cleaver. And
I couldn't believe that when I saw that.
My favorite story is I was on book tour, as you mentioned, and we've been on tour for over a month and visited about 20 cities. And my favorite was WGN, which is it's an old school station in Chicago.
Chicago, oh, yeah.
And the gentleman doing the interview, they were putting these pictures from the back of the book. There's one of my parents dressed as Mr. and Mrs. Claus, our dog. And he put the one up of Gary dressed as June Cleaver from Halloween. And he goes, "Now, this is a maiden aunt of yours?" And I'm like,
and
no,
you said what?
No, sweetie, that's Gary right over there. And it's just, he's this very serious journalist, and
they don't get it. Some people just don't get it.
Didn't get it. I think
well,
it was
they don't live in Palm Springs.
No, and I think that I ended up being a more difficult interview for him than I think Hillary Clinton. It was just, the look on his face was priceless.
Well, it's like the story you tell in the book about wanting to buy an anniversary present for Gary, and you went into the automobile showroom.
And trying to be a gay man buying from a straight man in the Midwest often didn't go over well.
What area was that? I forget.
We lived in St. Louis.
In St. Louis, yeah.
So we've been around a lot.
Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and we went to look at cars, and the gentleman that was helping me, when I said I wanted something for my partner, I think he thought I meant business partner. And I could see him go into the glass showroom and scream, basically, "There's a gay guy out there. Somebody, for God's sakes, help me."
Yeah, right.
So, and that's what I love is this book covers so many holidays, from the traditional, like Christmas and Thanksgiving and Halloween, to the non-traditional. So,
the funny one to me was the Academy Award party.
Academy Awards, yeah. Gary and I, we consider ourselves to be the gay grifters. So together we can rule the world. I can pick any Oscar winner. So we actually have been kicked out of our friends' pools because we won too much. Win. And Gary can pick any Miss America or Miss USA. Any. It's amazing. And I have tips in here of like his top 10 rules of how you know what to look for.
Yeah, well, we all have those very special talents. I mean, that'll get you through life.
Ours are real special.
Yeah, Miss America and the Academy Awards.
Miss America. And I cover like Arbor Day in this book, and kind of how I call it the traditional gay holiday is to go to Home Depot and pick out saplings. Because there are so many gay people that don't know what the hell they're doing that work there. So I have to humor Gary and go with him to go pick out saplings every year. So we cover all of those, even to Barbie's birthday, because we grew up always wanting a Barbie and never got one. So that was actually the first thing we got as a couple. But
I think there are several things that are really unique to certain gay people in Palm Springs that do all of this. And besides, you're all very creative. Not all. I don't mean all out there. You guys are very creative, but not all that work in Home Depot, for instance, are.
Exactly. And, I always say the holidays, each one is so special, because I write in this book, we were just talking in the break about St. Patrick's Day, and that was my dad's favorite holiday, and he pretended to be Irish. He thought he was Danny Kaye. and he would make scrambled green eggs and pinch me if I weren't wearing green. And my mom said, Ted, you're not Irish. It's like being a little bit pregnant. There's no such thing. Either you are or you aren't. But I think that's the beauty of this book, is everybody's going to find that holiday that they love so much.
Well, that's true. But I don't think I've ever celebrated Arbor Day. I remember as a very, very little girl in school, we planted a tree once, but we didn't really go overboard with it. But anyhow, well, you're in Palm Springs. You're here every season, and you live in Sagatuck in Michigan in the other part of the year. So what's your favorite holiday or party while you're here? I mean, did you go to the white party?
Do you know, we did not go to the white party. I always say that we would double the age demographic if we went.
I hear that a lot from my gay friends, that they maybe we're all in the older area. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, it's a blast, and we could hear the music, and we went out to dinner, but it's just I think it's kind of like going to the Coachella Valley rock concert. Yeah.
I know there's a lot of age groups and everything, and they dress kind of weird, and they eat strange things, and they camp out, and I thought, why would anybody want to do that? I think that's the attitude that a lot of people have about the white party.
Yeah, and it's great for the area, and people have a blast,
yeah.
But dancing at 3 a.m., I'm usually getting up at 6 a.m. for my coffee, so I'm kind of screwed in my writing if I'm not getting up.
That's the thing. Oh well, you're doing great things with your own holidays. The last time you were on my show, you said that you were working on a book about life in Palm Springs.
Yeah, actually.
And what's happening with that?
Very good timing. I sent it's my first novel, and I sent the initial kind of 70 pages, first 6 chapters or so, off to my literary agent, and she's going to let me know what she thinks. So I don't know yet. She was at the London Book Fair, so I'm unsure as to what her reaction was.
Well, you're so famous for the memoir type. I know a lot of it is fictionalized, and you put characters together and that sort of thing.
Yeah, so I don't get my rear sued.
Yeah. Right. But so I think an agent says, oh my God, wants to do a novel.
They do.
Not memoir. Yes.
They do. If you have success in a certain genre as an author, it's like being an actor. My comparison is always like they want Reese Witherspoon to do Legally Blonde 40. And she's like, for God's sakes, really?
I know, yeah.
But once you kind of get established and entrenched, they want you to continue on that level. So I hope the book is funny. It's kind of about a Follies-esque octogenarian.
Oh, I love that.
Drinks a little too much and swears she witnesses a murder in the canyons of Palm Springs
I like that.
That mimics something. She was known as the Scream Queen during her career. She was always murdered. So she swears it mimics that movie. So she convinces her son that they need to recreate the movie scene by scene to solve it before she's killed. And I love it.
I love it. That sounds like a lot of fun. Have you got a working title yet?
Yeah, it's called Just Like in the Movies.
Oh, that's
a retro modern murder. So,
I like that.
Yeah, I do too. And I love, Gary said the woman's name is Mitzi, and he said he already misses hearing about her. So fingers crossed.
Oh, well, that's good.
I think my agent will love it. I love it. I've spent a lot of time with it. So that's next. And I have another book, a humorous dog anthology that comes out in September.
I was going to ask you about that too. Somewhere on here I have the title of that. What is that one?
It's called I'm Not the Biggest Bitch in This Relationship. And another long title, but it's perfect.
No, it is absolutely perfect.
And it's
I love that.
all about people's neurotic relationships with their dogs. And I have 21 contributors, 11 New York Times bestseller. Chelsea Handler and her dog Chunk wrote the foreword for the book. So and portion of the proceeds go to the Humane Society.
Which is
all
great.
Good stuff.
It is good stuff. Any of it coming to the local? Palm Springs is trying to build up their animal shelter.
I would love to do a collaborative effort with them when the book comes out. We paired with the National Humane Society, which is giving it backing, and each of the contributors was able to promote their own local
they would love
shelter.
That, because it's tough. They're getting a lot of money for it.
But tough today,
but it's
and
tough.
that's a reason I really wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I mean, dogs have meant the world to me, and
you recently, I'm so sorry, lost your wonderful dog that you talk about in all of your stories, your companion, your buddy. But
our Margie left on Monday, so we're
But she lived a good full life, you told me.
14 years, 80 pounds, and she was my best friend. She laid at my feet through 5 books, and she's still out there watching over us.
Absolutely.
So. And we have another little dog, Mabel, who's insane.
Well, she probably misses Margie.
She does.
Also.
We all do. So it's been a tough week.
Yeah, I'm sure. What overall conclusion, when you finished this book, did you reach about your families and holidays in general?
I think really it's partly the insanity that binds us together, but moreover, and the dysfunction and the liquor. But it's also just the time that you spend with those we love, and to kind of look beyond that insanity to those people that mean the most to you in your life. And this is a chance to kind of bridge, no matter what emotional, geographic distance, to come together and be together. And, the book really pays tribute to my mom a lot. And
yes, and you've got a lovely dedication in the front of your book. Let's talk about that. It says, "For my mother, my holidays will never be the same. For my father, I'm still with you, buddy. For my man, you still make me believe in Santa, the Easter Bunny, God, love, family, myself, but mostly us." And then what do you say to your fans?
And then at the very end, I have, "For my fans, you make me wake up every morning with a pounding heart, ready and excited to write. You make my dream come true." And that's
wonderful.
That's truly what it's all about, is that, I always say no matter how great a writer you are, if people aren't out there in today's economy buying your books and supporting you, then you're going to be, I'd be at Taco Bell, I think, or Subway.
Well, but you would make a party out of that, Wade.
I would, actually.
I mean, and you would redress everyone. You'd design different outfits.
I would,
and Gary would be in there somewhere.
Although I'm afraid if I worked at Subway, I'd be fired the first day, because I'd always ask with an ironic tone, 6-inch. So, can we say that here?
Well, you always manage to get in something,
so
and
maybe
of course,
Taco Bell would be a better fit.
Maybe so. Well, I loved the last book that you did. At least in the city, someone would hear me scream. That was just hysterical.
Thank you.
I mean, I laughed out loud at that. And this is very, very funny, too, and very amusing. But picturing you guys out in the woods in Saugatuck with all that goes on there.
In my slides that I'm wearing right now. Which you can wear in Palm Springs, but not in 12 inches of snow.
No, the famous slides. And then Gary is trying to create gardens, and then you've got all of these other people kind of checking you out, and there was some guy in a trailer living next door.
Yeah, we live next to a guy in a trailer who, I always say, tried to show us a man burrito, and we live next to, down the road, a former war vet who said he was keeping an eye on our house, and when he came over and told us that, we realized that he had night vision goggles. So welcome people.
That's really true.
It's really true. Really true.
Night vision. He was keeping an eye on you too.
And he was actually flattered to be in the book. When you write about your neighbors, you're going to kind of stick to what really happened, or you're going to be in serious trouble. And though my humor kind of exaggerated a lot of what happened, that was spot on what occurred. So that's life in the woods. I mean, the resort town's beautiful, but we're about 10 miles outside of it.
That's right.
It's a night and day difference.
Oh.
I love it. I love the privacy, but, I always picture the guy seeing me shoot Ready Whip into my dog's mouth.
Well, this has been such fun, Wade. And on that note, we have to say I'm out of time. Thank you so much for being here. Good luck with the rest of your tour. I can hardly wait to hear the news about the new novel, and we'll be right back. Hold on.